to the Mindset with Morgan podcast. I am so grateful you're here. I'm Morgan, and I am a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur who adores all things business. I love building great teams and great companies who benefit the world. I've been building and running startups for nearly 15 years and have learned a few things along the way. I'm a teacher by heart, and I'm so excited to share with you. I'm also human, and I need a good pick-me-up and mindset shift before meetings, tough conversations, and sometimes just on my morning commute. My hope is that you can use this podcast as a quick mindset reset before you start your day or whenever you need a mindset shift. I also love a good funny story with a helpful lesson involved, and that is what you'll get here. Now let's learn, grow, and have a few laughs.
All right, so today we have a very special friend of mine, Riva Treasure. Riva is the founder of What Riva Wore, and she and I met over a decade ago while frolicking in downtown Milwaukee, probably even more than that. And she started an amazing blog, which started as a blog, and she'll kind of tell us how this all began. What Riva Wore, check it out on Instagram. It's amazing. And she's so real, so funny, so genuine. You will learn so much. And I'm so happy she's here today. So welcome.
Hello, Morgan. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. We've talked for like an hour before we actually started recording. So I think we'll be able to keep on track now. So my first question for you. So you started What Riva Wore in 2016.
Yes.
What prompted you to start this?
Yes. So I started my blog, What Riva Wore. You reminded me, 2016. It all started on Instagram. I had an Instagram account and I was sharing my daily outfits on there. And it just seemed to grow where people were asking me, where did you get that shirt? Where did you get those pants, etc. So I decided to get my own platform and actually have a blog website. Now, I feel like back in 2016, fashion blogging was kind of hot. I don't know if it's still hot or if I'm just not following as many people now, but I decided to take the jump and I bought the domain and started my website and have been on there ever since. So I guess it was a supply and demand. People wanted more and I decided to grow from there.
I think fashion blogging is still pretty hot, right?
I think so. I think I'm probably not as, I'm more on Instagram viewing than I am like going to actual blog websites, but there's definitely a market for it still.
Oh, for sure. So if somebody goes to What Riva Wore, whether your blog or Instagram, what would they expect to see?
So I share the majority of fashion and lifestyle content. I originally started doing just fashion, so I would be like literally what I'm wearing. And I did the plural, what Riva wore, because I was never going to do it in real time. But as I grew and kind of, I guess, grew as an adult and my lifestyle changed and my family grew, I kind of adapted it that way. So I started with fashion, and as I shared more of my life, I guess people were more interested in things I didn't think they'd be interested in. So I started to share a little bit of everything to do with my life. So it's funny now that I used to just say I was a fashion blogger, and now I say fashion and lifestyle, because I will share an outfit, but then I will share, me cutting a watermelon and the cracking of the sound, because people were enjoying that as much as I did.
Enjoy those.
So yeah, if you come to my Instagram and watch my stories, you will probably see something really silly and funny, but just everyday content. And then my blog, I would say, is more, more for content and more in-depth things going on in my life.
But I think that's actually a really good lesson, because you listened to what people wanted to see and wanted to hear. I mean, in an ideal world, if it was just you, would you do more lifestyle or clothes, or do you feel like that kind of came because that's what people wanted to see from you?
Well, I definitely think it came from the interest, because I didn't necessarily think anyone would be interested in, let's just say, my, bathroom remodel, because I'm not a interior designer. So, I just didn't think anyone would want to see my side of things. But I guess something I've learned throughout the years is people are interested in people, and that doesn't necessarily need that someone needs to come to my page because I'm an expert in something. It's they want to see someone that's more of a peer. So I have found that people are interested in seeing my perspective on certain things because they're going through the exact same thing. There's a time and a place for an expert. If I wanted to try to figure out my life, I'd probably reach out to you, Morgan. But if someone's redoing their bathroom, or they are going on a weekend trip to somewhere I went, they might just want to see a kind of peer-to-peer opinion or recommendation.
And you've done a really good job of that, I think, because you're relatable and you really, like, I know you really well. Who you are on social media is literally who you are. When you're
Yes.
talking on Instagram stories, like, I feel like you're talking to me. Like, there's no difference.
Yeah.
But I think people really like that. They know this, if they meet you in public, you are what Riva wore. You are Riva
Yeah.
Treasure, no matter where you go.
And I've definitely like grown into that as well, because I feel like in the beginning, I was kind of looking to see what other people were doing, and I was basing my content on that. And I think just growing from there to see, well, there's only one me, and I'm only going to share, you know, I only want to share what's real to me. What is the point of kind of copying or mimicking everything that everyone else is doing? Because it's really just mimicking. So I have kind of definitely grown into just sharing stuff that is relatable to me. And whoever is along on the ride is enjoying the silliness that comes along with it.
But you also, and this wasn't on our list of questions, but I think that's okay. I think you do a really good job because you obviously have children and you share them, but you also have really good boundaries. You also have a husband who doesn't like to be on social media, but yet somehow I feel people, even though you have really, really specific boundaries, which you're great at, people also, I think, feel like they know Michael and
Yes.
your kids. How do you do that while protecting your young children, but also still sharing them strategically where people still feel like they're a part of it?
Yeah.
That's got to be challenging, but you do
Well,
it well.
thank you for the compliments. Yes, my husband hates social media. I had to actually teach him how to use Instagram because he thought it was just fashion. And then I showed him, no, there's like hashtags where you can look up Jeeps and off-roading stuff. And he was like, whoa, this is cool. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, yeah, I do try to respect his boundary. I do, break it sometimes when I try to share a photo of him, and then his friends will contact me, or contact him to tell him that he's on the internet. But yes, I'm trying to not share my children just for their protection, and, the total, they're not consenting to being on the internet. They're little guys, so I'll let them, they have a whole life of that. But being a mom and a wife is, my personality. So I am sharing struggles that I'm having, or try to put out relatable content because, there's other people in the same chapter of life as me, and it can feel isolating when you don't know that someone else is, you know, having the same challenges as you do. So I do think there's benefits of keeping things to yourself, but also sharing some struggles, and you know, also exciting things happening in your life too. You want to celebrate that. So yeah, Instagram is great, or I should say social media is great for having, lots of perfect content being pushed out to you, but then also really sad content, and just having a kind of mix of both, sides of people's lives is beneficial to have, to see real life.
For sure. It's definitely a balance to pick and choose
Hmm.
what you want to put out there.
Yeah.
So going back to the brand,
Hmm.
when you started the business, what was something that you didn't expect to happen or you didn't expect to learn that kind of came from this?
Sure. Well, I didn't, I started it, I guess I should say, I started it not with the intention of I'm going to start this blog and I'm going to make money and I'm going to do work with brands. I started it with, you know, started it with a passion. And I think that's really what I want to, put out there, is that I started it because it was something I wanted to do. And I think starting a business with that mindset is what makes businesses successful. Because if you're just seeking to start one to make money or to, whatever, it's never going to succeed. So, I think something I learned is just keeping things, close to my heart and keeping things authentic and staying in my own lane. Like I said in the beginning, I would just, look at other people. Oh, I could, buy that exact same shirt and, do this or post that, but that doesn't get me anywhere. And I think just, keeping myself authentic and true to myself is what's helped get me to where I am. Hopefully I answered that. My mom brain is just,
No, I think you did. Definitely. It's, yeah, I mean, there is, you think that you maybe want to be something or go in a certain direction and you go a different direction, but you've stayed authentic to yourself. And I think that's a huge lesson in itself is it's almost harder sometimes, I feel like, to be authentic than it is to not be authentic, which
totally.
you would think it would be the opposite, but I think it's because it's vulnerable.
Mhm.
And if somebody doesn't like you, or if somebody doesn't like your content, or if they just are rubbed the wrong way, it's almost a little more painful because it's actually you, right?
Yeah,
Versus not.
totally.
Like it can feel very personal. And I'm sure you've had people say not nice things to
You know what?
you.
Like shockingly, I've had probably like I could count on one hand like negative encounters. And
That's
that's
amazing.
and that actually is like so shocking to me because I feel like we just live in a troll world where everyone just one, people can't have differing opinions. And two, people just always like think they're right. And of course I think I'm right on things. But
I think you are.
yeah, right. But I think okay, wait, where am I going? No,
Well,
I
what,
have not.
so what
I
is your secret?
um well, one, we were saying, I mean, just staying authentic. Like I can't fake something. One, I'm like a really bad liar. I would just get caught up. Like just keeping myself true to myself is like where people are going to get that consistency from me. So I think being consistent is one thing because no one can catch you in something if you're not like
Yeah,
being yourself or being consistent.
right. Like on those political ads where they'll say like, oh, here's the person saying this. And then 10 days later, they say the opposite thing. Like
Yes.
that's never going to happen with you.
Yes. No. No.
Nope, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that alone could be like one of the best things people could learn is like, how do I make people not be mean to me?
Yeah.
And there you go. Be
Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah.
There it is. And not everyone's going to love everyone, right? That's what makes the
Totally.
world go round. But
Yep. Yep.
at
Yeah.
least if
Like I
somebody knows
only
someone's being authentic, they can respect it.
Yes. And I only want people to stick around if they want to. That's kind of my thing too, is I've definitely had arguments with people over things I've said, things I've done, things I've posted, but I think I'm totally fine if we have a conversation where it's like I hear other people's side on things. If I'm like the sky is green and people are like, well, no, it's actually blue. And I learn more, then I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that. But having a conversation with people who have differing opinions, I think is really important too. So it's like, I want people to stick around and follow me, but only if they want to. And if they're different, or have differing opinions, that's totally fine too. And I'm, totally open for a conversation to hear other people's sides of things.
Yeah. And maybe that right there is the difference and the secret because
Mhm.
not everyone is willing to listen to other people's sides or put
Yeah.
themselves in other people's shoes. I
Yeah.
kind of have a personal rule where I remind myself that 99.999% of people have good intentions. And if
Yes.
you can just remember that, then no matter what they say or do, you can at least put yourself in their shoes and say, like,
Yes.
what were they thinking? Or how do they feel? Or where did they
Yeah.
come from? Because, people have decades of experience that
Yes.
come to, whatever thing they're about to say. Think of how they got there. And
Mhm.
sure, there's going to be a
Yeah.
select few jerks out there who just want to cause chaos. But for the most
Yeah.
part, that's not typically what people are trying to do. So
Yeah.
the
And
fact
it's
that
like
you're
people can
willing to
always,
listen.
yeah. And people can have different truths to different situations. So,
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
mm-hmm, totally. So what has been the greatest lesson you've learned? You're in your ninth year now.
My
I
gosh.
mean, that's many years of lessons. So what would you say, especially if somebody's thinking about doing this,
Hmm.
which I will say, like, it's not too late. I
Yeah.
think people always think like, oh my gosh, it's been done, it's over. Like, there's always room. There's always room for more and for growth.
Yeah.
So if somebody was starting this, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned that you could share with them?
Sure. So I would say with that, number one is just to get started. Just start. Don't like pre-plan everything and wait until you have everything perfect because it's never going to be perfect. So if there's something you have a passion for and you want to start a business, a venture, a hobby, just start it. And then you can kind of finite and, get everything organized as you go. And I think if you talk to any business owner, they're never going to say my business is perfect and I'm so glad that things are running perfectly. It never is. So I would think, yeah, just my number one is like, just get started.
I love that. As a recovering perfectionist, it's like starting a business is like jumping off a cliff or starting
Yeah.
anything, and you've got to be okay just seeing what happens. Because, like you get feedback that might result in going a little bit of a different direction because that's
Mhm.
what people want to hear and see. And if it aligns with what you want to say,
Yes.
that could pivot versus spending months preparing for something and then it doesn't. Everything you prepared, you don't even use or you don't even do. And having done that, I totally, totally can relate.
Yeah.
So now, especially ninth year, you're really established. We know what to expect when we, look at your content. What's your favorite part about this business today, day to day?
Yes. So I think for me, it's been the opportunities and the people that I've met throughout the years. And I think I had said this, like, I never started this business so that could, make money or get opportunities. I just started it because I liked it and I wanted to just do more of it. And then with that, um, the rewards have kind of come along with it. So I would just say favorite thing is getting to meet cool people and be introduced to businesses and just kind of expand my expertise in marketing and social media.
Yeah, and you're such a people person, so it makes
Thank
a lot
you.
of sense.
Yeah. Sometimes I think I'm just talking to myself and then I get responses and it's like, oh, there are people out
You're like, oh, people are actually out there
there.
watching
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
That's good though,
I
but I think that shows your how genuine you are, that you don't really care who's watching.
I
You're
don't.
you're
Yeah.
being you.
Yeah. I find that the more casual and more like just day-to-day stuff is so interesting that that's what people like. And that's kind of what you know, I work in marketing and that's what I tell people is like people and they just want to see other people and learn about them and kind of hear their opinions on things. And day to day is, I live a different life than everyone else. So it's kind of fun to see what I'm doing. And I would say the same about other people.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good message because when if you run any sort of brand, a lot of brands just post the brand and
Mhm.
make sure the colors are right. But yeah, that makes sense. People want to see people and what they're doing because we're curious
Yes.
and
Yes.
nosy.
Yes. Totally.
Like I love to watch like your chicken videos and see what, like, people are nosy. They want to know what other people are doing when they don't see them, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Like, what are they doing when they go home? What is
Yeah.
their life like? What is that?
Yeah. And then I think it's just funny, I guess, when I take myself out of myself, I'm like, oh, I do live a very interesting life and I have a lot of kind of like quirks that I'm like, oh, I have chickens but I also like designer handbags, but then I like to go thrifting and then I have two kids, but then I don't know, I'm silly and act like I'm 22. So, yeah.
You are. You're like the most interesting woman in the world,
Oh my gosh, you better make that the episode title.
right? My interview with the most interesting woman in the world. I like that. So, how can people find you? Let's say they listen and they're like, "Ooh, I want to see a girl who wears Gucci and feeds her chickens."
Yeah.
How do we find you?
Yes. So you can find me on my website, which is whatrivaward.com. And then on all other platforms, it's just at What Riva Wore.
Easy peasy. And you have a really cool name, which I think is
Yes, I got
makes
very
you
lucky.
more interesting.
Yes, I got very lucky with the married last name and interesting first name. Riva
For
Treasure.
sure. I love it. So we will end with, what is the biggest piece of advice that you could share?
Biggest piece of advice I would say is, if you are thinking about starting anything, start it. And don't look at what other people are doing in the industry. Just stay in your own lane, start whatever it is, and you can tweak it from there and figure out your audience, what you want to do with it. But the hardest thing is getting started. So just get started and you can go from there.
I think I'm going to take your advice as well, because
Good.
that is so true and so helpful. And, be yourself. As you've learned from Riva, that is, I think, the key to a lot of it is you are you and you are nobody else. And we don't want you to be someone else.
Yes.
We want some Riva Treasure content.
Yeah.
We want to see some cracked watermelons. I'm always rooting for your watermelons to be perfect.
Well,
That sounded weird.
Yeah, I have a very exciting piece of content that has been on my list that maybe I should take my own advice and just do it, not make it
Just do it.
perfect, and just do it. So I have very exciting watermelon content coming up.
Perfect. Well, now we can all keep an eye out for it.
Yes.
Well, Riva, thank you for chatting with me today. I hope this was helpful for everyone listening. There is so much valuable stuff here. And I think the key, as Riva said, is be yourself, be genuine. People like people. People want to see people. And you have really held firm to that. So thank you for sharing, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me.